Hello and welcome to the 8th Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. My name is Bill Flanagan. I am the host of Our Region's Business on WPXI TV, as well as Chief Corporate Relations Officer for the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. And it has been both a privilege and an honor for the conference to have co-convened this event since its inception 8 years ago. It's my pleasure to serve as your moderator across the 3 days of this unusual conference in 2020. And what a year this has been, from a global healthcare crisis and pandemic to a recession that's the deepest for our region since the Great Recession over a decade ago. And of course, with waves of social unrest and protests for racial justice that have rolled across not just our region, but the nation over the course of the past several months. Really, never has the work and the mission of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable been more important to try to find a way to assure equal opportunity and justice for everyone who lives here in our region, and opportunities for them to be everything they can be, especially in the corporate world and in their careers. Well, none of us would be here without the visionary behind the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable, and it's my pleasure to introduce for welcoming remarks the Chairman and CEO of the Black Political Empowerment Project, Tim Stevens.
On June 10th, 2010, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported in an article written by Harold Miller that the Pittsburgh region ranked dead last on indicators of racial and economic parity in comparison to 39 other regions in the country with regard to conditions of the black working poor and black children. This report led the Black Political Empowerment Project, B-PEP, in 2011 to lay the foundation for initiating the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable, CEIR. An analysis prepared by Three Rivers Workforce Investment Board in 2012 reported that African Americans in the Pittsburgh region were making less than other groups in the same sector of work. Many of us who live in the Pittsburgh region have celebrated and even bragged about the many #1 ratings and top 10 ratings that either the city of Pittsburgh or the Pittsburgh region have attained over the years. The sad news is that African Americans as a group, based on the 2010 article by Harold Miller, the 2012 analysis done by the Three Rivers Workforce Investment Board, and the City of Pittsburgh Gender Commission, University of Pittsburgh report on the conditions of blacks in Pittsburgh, released on September 17, 2019, do not allow African Americans to tout such success in terms of their conditions or anything close to a top 10 rating when compared to other cities in the United States of America. The headline written by J. Dale Shoemaker, a public source, in his article of September 17, 2019, states a very sad and troubling Pittsburgh reality. Quote, Pittsburgh's black residents feel consequences of inequality more starkly than in other cities, the New City Reports finds. Now, what many African Americans and hopefully many other Pittsburghers found beyond disturbing are the words attributed to the study's co-author, Junia Howell, an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Pittsburgh, and her analysis of the Pittsburgh situation. Quote, what this means is that if black residents got up today, just got up and left and moved to the majority of any other cities in the United States, automatically, just by moving, their life expectancy would go up, their income would go up, their educational opportunities for their children would go up, as well as their employment, end of quote. What an indictment on the city of Pittsburgh and the leadership of our companies, corporations, universities, colleges, nonprofits, governmental institutions, and even our community organizations. We are all at fault. Such a stark reality is certainly not an advertisement for blacks who are looking throughout the nation for employment to seriously consider employment in Pittsburgh, nor for whites or other races and ethnicities who wish to work in environments where the employment, retaining, training, and the promotion of African Americans are seen and embraced as top priorities. The headline in the October 9th through 15th, 2019 edition of the New Pittsburgh Courier, quote, more black women live in poverty in Pittsburgh than comparable cities, quote, adds to the poor image of Pittsburgh and cries out for change and cries out for aggressive action by all of us. The good news is that the Index of Ranked Livability, created by the University of Pittsburgh research team that examined data related to health, education, poverty, and employment, and how data compared to nearly 90 other cities with substantial white and black populations, provides us all with a clear case for action. It should be totally unacceptable to all of us that in 2019, black and other non-white women earn between 54 cents and 59 cents for every dollar a white man makes in the city of Pittsburgh. The New Pittsburgh Courier article mentioned that more black women live in poverty in Pittsburgh than 85% of other cities, and that 85% of other cities have higher rates of black employment than Pittsburgh. The article goes on to mention, while whites tend to find employment across high to low income employment sectors, blacks are more segregated, with fewer in the high income positions such as attorney, engineer, mathematician, etc. End of quote. Another very troubling statistic identified in this report was that, quote, the maternal mortality rate among black mothers in Pittsburgh was worse than a vast majority of comparable cities, end of quote. And that the rate of infant mortality for black babies is more than 6 times higher than it is for white babies. The New Pittsburgh Courier article pointed out that fetal deaths for black women in Pittsburgh is higher than in 94% of other cities. Such a statistic is indeed tragic. We applaud Mayor Peduto for boldly stating at his September 17, 2019 press conference that, quote, we have rates within our black community that are third world when it comes to infant mortality. And there shouldn't be anyone in the city of Pittsburgh that can accept that fact, nor be asking, and not be asking, what am I doing? What is my company doing? What is my organization doing in order to change it, end of quote. We ask that all persons attending the 8th annual CEIR Conference keep those questions in mind as you participate in the conference. Over the years, many African Americans in Pittsburgh, when we frequently hear the words describing Pittsburgh as, quote unquote, a most livable city, react and can help but ask the question, for whom is it most livable? As I was leaving our B-PEP headquarters on a Saturday afternoon in the Hill District after working on my initial comments responding to the September 17th Gender Commission University of Pittsburgh report, I couldn't help but notice the relatively new garbage container located out front of our office in the Hill District. On the can were the words, Pittsburgh, a most livable city. What all of us want within the CEIR working group is for those words on a garbage can to actually mean something to all Pittsburghers, and particularly to black Pittsburghers. None other than a white man born deep in the heart of Texas. From his perch as President of the United States of America, Lyndon Baines Johnson stated in his speech defining a concept that we don't hear much anymore, affirmative action, said the following to the graduating class at Howard University in 1965, quote, you do not take a man who for years has been hobbled by chains, liberate him, bring him to the starting line of a race saying you are free to compete with all the others and still justly believe you have been completely fair. This is the next and most profound stage of the battle for civil rights. We seek not just freedom, but opportunity. Not just legal equity, but human ability. Not just equality as a right and a theory, but equality as a fact and as a result. The question remains, what must leadership from the Pittsburgh region do to positively impact the very disturbing statistics unveiled in the September 17, 2019 press conference and the reports which came before? One such game plan for action already exists, and in our opinion must be fully reviewed, adopted, and implemented on a permanent basis, with the concepts, principles, and actions meticulously outlined in the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable document, the Executive Summary, and the Pittsburgh Southwestern Pennsylvania Initiative for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion document. These documents can be accessed at CEIR website, that's ceirpittsburgh.org, ceirpittsburgh.org. We can be contacted at 412-8775, 412-212-8775, or email us at ceirpittsburgh@gmail.com. We're happy to say that Art Rooney, president of the Pittsburgh Steelers, has a major announcement today with regard to that CEIR initiative. The time for inaction and benign neglect has long passed, locally and nationally. The gaping wounds of the ongoing racial disparities of this nation in terms of the application of justice, in terms of health, wealth, and social equality, have for months been on full display since the death of Breonna Taylor on March 13, 2020, the death of George Floyd on Memorial Day, May 25, 2020, and the coronavirus, the COVID-19, which has been with us since January 20th of 2020. The numerous protests which have taken place across the nation and locally should say to all of us that the time for committed, meaningful, concrete action is upon us. The time is now. Pittsburgh awaits that action, and so does the nation. The 8th annual CEIR Conference, taking place this week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, October 14th, 15th, and 16th, hosted here at Point Park University, is a great opportunity for leaders of our Pittsburgh region to make public their commitment for a new, meaningful, measurable, and ongoing commitment to true diversity, equity, and inclusion. We thank the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh for being the primary underwriter for this conference. We thank Point Park for hosting us. We thank all of our presenters and program participants for helping to make the case for all of us to move from well-meaning to well-doing. On behalf of the CEIR Working Group, I welcome you to the 8th Annual CEIR Conference. Try to be with us on all 3 days of the conference and to have a commitment to help make a difference within your company, your corporation, your university, your college, or your nonprofit. Thank you very much. I'm Tim Stevens.
Hi, I'm Bill Peduto, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, and I'd like to thank Tim Stevens and the Black Political Empowerment Project for putting together this 8th Summit. This year is a little bit different. Obviously, this is virtual, and we can't be together, and we don't have that opportunity to network with one another. So instead of giving a lengthy speech, let me just get into where I think that we are historically at this moment and why it's very important that we not only watch and listen, but that we take action. We're at a historical moment in this country. There has not been the opportunity for change since 1968. And as we see the unrest throughout this country, it's because there is a demand for that change as well. Many times we associate it with the protesters, but in most of the times it's being said quietly in our own neighborhoods. It's being whispered in our corporate halls, in our labor halls. It's being talked about in our churches. It's the change around a system that has been created not in an equal fashion so that everybody has an opportunity, but in a way that is a systemic racist structure, a system that gives certain people opportunity and others a lack of, and it's all based on your zip code. So what we need to do in Pittsburgh is to be able, number one, to recognize it and call it out. Number two, to be able to quantify it and show where it exists. And number three, to have the courage to change it. And it has to happen well beyond the halls of government. It needs to happen in the corporate headquarters, on the construction site, within our police bureaus, and within every institution that we call our city. In the city of Pittsburgh, we're committed to making sure that opportunity is available to everyone, not only in employment, but in advancement. We work to make sure that our institutions are utilized to be able to strengthen and empower others, and to be able to make sure that individual people are at the heart of the changes that we're seeing in the city. Now, for most of Pittsburgh, we've seen an upturn in our economy and prosperity in this new economy. But for so many people in our city, they have no ladder of opportunity towards that. So we have to change. We have to change our structure of policies, and we have to create new programs to be able to broaden that opportunity. It really comes down to this. Do we have the courage as a city to recognize where there is disparity? Do we have the ability to measure it and to show exactly where it exists? And do we have that courage to be able to change? I believe we do. And I believe this is a window of opportunity that we're not going to have possibly again in our lifetime. So it's important we do it now. I'm committed to working with everyone who wants to build a more just Pittsburgh for all. And I'm willing to put the time and the resources into the ideas that can make that happen. Thank you for putting together this summit so we can have this conversation.
All right, Bill, thank you so much. Really appreciate your setting the scene for us today. As I mentioned off the top, this is an unusual approach this year. Normally the Roundtable is a day-long event at Duquesne University. This year we've organized it into 3 separate 2-hour presentations, virtual presentations, and each one of them is going to have a different theme, also a little bit of a change from the way we've done it before. And helping to shepherd that process is my co-host for this year's event, Janine Jelks-Seale, who is Senior Advisor for the Office of Administration and Allegheny County Human Services. Janine, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's so great to be here to kick off our first day.
Absolutely.
With the theme of talent attraction and retention.
Okay.
As we reimagine Pittsburgh's future for African Americans, we have to start with the people and the talent that already exists within our great city and our region. So I very much look forward. We'll hear about that commitment at the top, what it takes when you make that commitment, how to convert that into strategies that really drive change to see participation at all levels throughout the organization. And we know what gets measured gets done. So what are the key metrics that you could put forth with your organization to make sure that you're making progress? And at the end of the day, we will reflect on all that's been said and have a real rich conversation about the journey Pittsburgh is on to having greater equity and inclusion for African Americans.
Well, and really good point. It's so important. It's leadership, it's metrics, and then it is a community conversation. And we're going to be following this format every day a little bit, right?
We will. So I don't give a little bit away about what's happening for the next 2 days, but we start off with talent attraction and retention. We'll move into a conversation so important about gender equity and human rights. And on the 3rd day, we wrap things up with a conversation about supplier diversity and development.
All important and a lot to look forward to. Well, we'll see you again tomorrow to help us set the scene for that event. Janine, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So Janine talked about leadership, and it really does begin at the top. To make change, to force change, and to stick with it until the change actually happens. And we are very fortunate here in Pittsburgh to have had leadership not just here in our region, but leadership that has had a national impact from the Pittsburgh Steelers and originally Dan Rooney himself. Dan was the father, the architect of the Rooney Rule that encouraged all NFL teams to make sure they had a diverse pool of candidates when they were hiring coaches. And it's made a material difference, not just here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but with teams all across America. And what's even better is that Dan's son, Art, is taking it a step further. He's agreed to partner with the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable and figure out how to take the Rooney Rule and take it to the next step. And we are very pleased today to have with us as our keynote speaker, Art Rooney.
Hello, everyone. First, I hope you're doing well and staying safe. I want to start by saying thanks to Tim Stevens for inviting me to speak today to the 8th Annual Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. And also thanks to Tim for everything he has been doing for so many years to make our community more fair and just. I'm sorry we couldn't be together in person this year, but it's great to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Our region faces so many obstacles, from the pandemic to social unrest. I know that so many of you are working diligently to find ways to serve our entire community and increase our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an organization, the Steelers continue to build on the values my father and grandfather established by emphasizing service to the community. I now chair the NFL's Workplace Diversity Committee, and this year the league has made a number of changes aimed at strengthening the Rooney Rule and ensuring a league-wide commitment to diversity and inclusion. As you may know, the Rooney Rule was adopted in 2003 and required teams to include at least one minority candidate for any search for the head coach. The league will now require teams to interview at least 2 external minority candidates for head coach openings, up from 1. And for the first time, teams will be required to interview at least 1 external minority candidate for the important stepping stone positions of offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator. In addition, we've extended the Rooney Rule to the managerial and business side of teams. Minority and female interviews are now required for positions involving team president and senior executives. One additional policy we have adopted this year is to ask every team in the league to implement a diversity and inclusion plan. With all of that work being done at the league level, it was interesting when I met with Tim Stevens earlier this year to discuss the CEIR initiative that he described as the comprehensive Rooney Rule with results. The overlap in some of the objectives and policies included in the CEIR initiative with the Rooney Rule are remarkable. And that is why I'm happy to endorse CEIR's initiative, including the Ban the Box initiative. As we move ahead, I'm looking forward to sharing the CEIR initiative with my colleagues in the NFL. Since the adoption of the original Rooney Rule in 2003, it has been great to see so many local organizations, as well as national and international organizations, adopt the initiatives and spirit of the Rooney Rule, and to incorporate it into their best practices and procedures. We all know there is more work to be done. That's why I applaud the efforts behind the CEIR initiative to further develop strategies and action steps to improve equity and inclusion throughout our entire region. I truly appreciate your time today and all the hard work you dedicate to our entire community. Stay well and stay safe. Thank you.
All right, Rooney, thank you so much for your participation today, but even more importantly for the leadership that the Pittsburgh Steelers have shown in really trying to make a difference in creating opportunity for African Americans within the NFL. And so much of this really is about leadership, not just today's leaders who need to stand up and really affect change, but also the pipeline that we need to create to assure that a more diverse leadership is emerging in our region. And one of the really important initiatives that's come about in just the past couple of years is called the Advanced Leadership Initiative, an effort to really identify those promising African American individuals in our community who really have that corner office potential and attempt to speed them on their way. And I'm really pleased today to be able to welcome Regina Scott, who is a graduate of the Advanced Leadership Initiative, as well as an executive with Gateway Health here in Pittsburgh, to tell us a little bit about TALI and the experience and to share a video to bring it to life. Yeah, Regina, great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so why TALI? Why did you want to participate in this program?
Because it was necessary in the climate here in the Pittsburgh region for African American leaders who want to ascend to those higher echelons of corporate leadership. There's really not a path for us. We a lot of times experience difficulties transcending to those higher levels, and so having an organization and having a program that will provide us with not only the training but the network that allows us to be successful, it was critical.
Yeah, and there's an executive academy within the Advanced Leadership Initiative, and that's what you participated in for basically the better part of a year, right?
Yes, it's the signature program of the Advanced Leadership Initiative through the Executive Leadership Academy at Carnegie Mellon University.
Yeah, so what do you do? What's the experience like? What makes it so valuable?
It's so much. It's the educational aspect of it, being able to work with professors from all of the top tier schools across the nation, in addition to having the ability to network with my peers, other leaders who are in similar roles across the region, and also being able to network with some of the CEOs and C-suite individuals that are working here right in the city of Pittsburgh, to be able to meld those things together to create an experience that is really incomparable to any other executive leadership program that I've seen.
That's really exciting. Do you feel like you have relationships now within corporate Pittsburgh that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Oh, absolutely. Coming from state government, we really networked internally, and it was more of a silo environment. And so being able to come to a program like this and being able to experience not only leaders within my own organization, but in other organizations that are having an impact within our region, it was really an important and impressive experience.
Well, exciting. Well, I understand you brought us a little video to share with everybody exactly what it's like.
I did. Please take a look at this video and see what we're doing in the Advanced Leadership Initiative.
The Advanced Leadership Initiative has a signature program called the Executive Leadership Academy. In partnership with the Carnegie Mellon University School of Business, instructors equip members of the cohort with tools, knowledge, and resources to ensure that we focus on our professional development over the next 7 months.
There is a real need in this community for diverse leadership. The Advanced Leadership Initiative helps to anchor people to be more genuine and more confident in their own ability to lead and their own ability to understand the environment that they have to navigate.
The program is designed to bring together these very high-performing, high-potential African Americans.
I bring a science background and I blend it with really practical strategies to transform your own leadership and take it to the next level. We're learning the latest in strategy and management, building social connections.
There are leaders here from the public sector, from the private sector, from the nonprofit sector. The fusion of these different industries, the fusion of these different leadership styles really strengthens this program.
It's really creating this broad ecosystem of support, everyone pulling for our cohort members to be successful.
TALI was a great opportunity to explore what we can do in order to propel Black leaders within the executive management as well as C-suite space.
We also connect people with executive mentors because at a certain level within organizations, regardless of how effective you can be as a manager, as a leader, if you don't have a sponsor, you can't really make it to that next level.
We've been able to create this bond or this camaraderie that you just don't get when you're in just your institution. For me personally, to get with the coaches and get with the sponsors as well as our mentors, it allowed me to see myself in a different light.
It's something that you'll be able to carry with you throughout the duration of your career and your life. And if you're aiming for that C-suite position, there's no other program in the city of Pittsburgh that's going to prepare you better.
That's the Advanced Leadership Initiative, and it's great to see the results that they're already beginning to deliver with a third cohort getting ready to join the program coming up in January. Great work by everybody involved. You know, it's an old line in management that you can't manage what you don't measure. And so as part of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable this year, all 3 days, we're going to focus on measurement because after all, if you don't know where we are, it's impossible to understand how much progress we're making. And one important new tool that's been rolled out recently is Vibrant Pittsburgh's Vibrant Index, an effort to get a sense across corporate Pittsburgh of how well companies are doing, how well employers are doing in terms of the diversity of their workforce, and especially the diversity in the C-suite. And so for an update and a report on what Vibrant Pittsburgh has discovered so far, we're very pleased to welcome Laura McKnight, the COO and Vice President of Programs and Services, and Alexandria Johnson, the Workplace Solutions Analyst of Vibrant Pittsburgh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura McKnight, and I am the Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of Programs and Services at Vibrant Pittsburgh. Vibrant Pittsburgh's mission is to build a thriving and inclusive Pittsburgh region by attracting, retaining, and elevating a diversity of talent. Today, I and Alexandria Johnson, who is Vibrant Pittsburgh's Workplace Solutions Analyst, will be sharing high-level findings from the Vibrant Index Summary Report. The information presented in the Vibrant Index Summary Report is drawn from a voluntary diagnostic survey that was made available to organizations with membership in Vibrant Pittsburgh and/or the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. Organizations self-selected participation in the diagnostic survey, and as a result, the findings are not necessarily representative of the Pittsburgh metropolitan statistical area, but instead the diagnostic was designed to provide a snapshot of the best practices being utilized by employers in a region, and it provides a foundation for future study. In its entirety, 50 companies that employ a total of 139,915 employees in the Pittsburgh region completed this diagnostic survey between June and August of 2019. The total number of employees in the Pittsburgh MSA is 1,145,559. So the behaviors of the companies that took this diagnostic survey impact around 12% of our local population. Participating organizations represented a variety of industries and organizational sizes, although most that participated employed over 1,000 people in our region. Participating organizations answered questions in 9 categories, and it is really important to note that these categories are not comparable, as they include or cover very different areas of best practices, and each area had different numbers of questions. So now I'm going to turn this over to Alexandria Johnson for her to take a deeper dive into the 9 categories that comprise our diagnostic survey.
All right, so let's take a closer look at the 9 categories that comprise our diagnostic survey. The written commitment category includes questions about an organization's public commitments to diversity and inclusion, such as the signing of diversity pledges or the public display of non-discrimination policies. Written public commitments show customers, clients, employees, and the public that diversity and inclusion are values of the organization, inviting organizational accountability and setting the tone for an inclusive organizational climate. The average score of the written commitment category was an 8.7 out of 10, which was the highest overall score of all the categories. The benefits and policies category includes questions about key benefits that have great impact on certain populations. It is not intended to be comprehensive, but indicative of the care that organizations take to make work life easier or possible for all employees. Benefits and policies are tangible evidence of an organization's commitment to creating a welcoming environment for a diverse workforce. And the average score of the benefits and policies category was a 6.3 out of 10. The organizations in our sample were surveyed about their family-friendly benefits, as they have been shown to have a profound effect on the ability of people with children to thrive in the workplace, impacting retention, especially for single parents and women. The only family-friendly benefit that was out of reach for all smaller organizations in our sample was on-site childcare or childcare reimbursement. And when asked about LGBTQIA+ benefits, 42 out of 50 organizations offer same-sex partner benefits, and 28 out of 50 offer non-married partner benefits. The employee networks category includes questions about employee resource groups, or ERGs, and business resource groups, or BRGs, present within an organization. The ERGs are recommended by Vibrant Pittsburgh as a way for employees to engage with networks that will help support and connect them to opportunities, information, and resources that are critical for engagement, advancement, and retention in the workplace. ERGs provide their sponsoring organizations critical insights into communities and cultures to cultivate more inclusive working environments. ERGs are not appropriate for every organization, and the success of ERGs are dependent upon a variety of factors, such as climate, organizational size, and ERG structure. And the average score of the employee networks category was a 5.5 out of 10. So 25 out of 29 of the employers with less than 1,000 employees have ERGs. 25 out of 29 of the employers with more than 1,000 employees have ERGs. These groups were out of reach for organizations of smaller size. Less than half of the participating organizations with ERGs are currently utilizing them for product or service design, marketing, or diverse hiring strategies. Diversity and inclusion work is most effective with the buy-in of an organization's top leadership, ensuring that D&I is folded into the overarching company strategy. The diversity and leadership category includes questions about an organization's leadership involvement with diversity and inclusion efforts. The average score of diversity and leadership category was at 5.3 out of 10, the second lowest average score out of all categories, and thus a top area of opportunity. The training and education category includes questions related to an organization's diversity and inclusion trainings, including the frequency of and regularity of trainings, as well as which job categories receive trainings. Keeping an organization's employees up to date on terms, practices, and challenges in D&I is necessary at every level, but it is crucial for hiring teams and managers whose decisions can cascade and have impacts on the entire organization. The average score of the training and education category was a 7.6 out of 10, making this category with the second highest average score out of all of the categories. The vast majority, 45 out of 50 of the organizations in our survey, had a D&I training within the last year, and most organizations are providing trainings on at least an annual basis. The data and accountability metrics category includes questions relating to the data an organization gathers about its employees. This information can be used to assess if D&I efforts are yielding fruit and can identify areas of opportunity within an organization. The average score on the data and accountability metrics category was a 5.6 out of 10. Almost all of the participating organizations reported that they were collecting data, with most collecting race and ethnicity as data they related to role, compensation, and turnover. Most of the organizations report using this data to inform their decision-making, but only half share this data with their board of directors, with few organizations making this data public or incorporating it into their performance management structures to increase accountability. The talent engagement and recruitment category surveys an organization's proactive practices to limit the effects of bias in the hiring and retaining of a diverse workforce, including diversity and inclusion recruitment goals, participation in hiring events, organized around minority groups, the use of non-discrimination policies on recruitment materials, and formal mentoring and sponsorship programs. The average score of the talent engagement and recruitment category was a 6.7 out of 10, making this the category with the third highest average score out of all the categories. And the next category, supplier diversity, includes questions related to the inclusion of minority and women-owned suppliers in an organization's supply chain. By collecting data on the diversity of their suppliers, an organization can increase awareness of spending patterns and detect any bias present. The average score in the diversity category was a 5 out of 10, the lowest average score out of all categories, thus representing the biggest area of opportunity for our employer participants. Of the 50 organizations surveyed, 27 collect and analyze the diversity of their suppliers, 26 have an official diversity supplier plan, but only 22 organizations track spending in terms of supplier diversity. And the community engagement category surveyed the many ways the organizations are engaging with diverse groups in our region, from providing meeting space and resources or partnering with local nonprofit organizations. Pittsburgh hosts hundreds of events created for and by its diverse residents, and active participation and support of these events makes an organization's commitment to the region's diverse communities visible. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Laura to discuss the key findings.
Thank you, Allie. So our big takeaways from the data: 88% of participants have provided diversity training. So an overwhelming majority of the participant organizations were offering D&I training to their staff within the last year, which had been collected in 2019, so probably in 2018 into 2019. However, while 72% of these participants stated that they needed assistance with limiting bias in their hiring practices, only 30% of participating organizations were providing D&I training and education that was directly being given to HR and hiring personnel. So Vibrant Pittsburgh is recommending that all staff have access to D&I training. The return on investment will be greatest when the staff who receive the training are in positions with the most impact on talent attraction, retention, and elevation. We also found that 48% of participants have one person or fewer responsible for advancing their D&I strategies. With an increased demand from top talent for inclusive workplaces, D&I strategies are differentiators for both organizations looking to attract a diversity of talent and for the region as it works to attract businesses from a variety of sectors. Vibrant Pittsburgh recommends assigning specific responsibility for advancing D&I to an individual or to a committee. This is an important, visible commitment signaling to talent that your organization is serious about the work of equity and inclusion. We also found that 34% of participants' CEOs are chairing their D&I work. So for maximum impact, we cannot overstress that we recommend that C-suite leaders have a prominent role in advancing D&I strategies. We know from the research, our research and the research of others, that C-suite leaders need to be involved and need to be leading diversity, equity, and inclusion work within an organization. We also found that 44% of our participants track supplier diversity spend. So as demographics in the United States are continuing to evolve, minorities will constitute more than 50% of the national population by the year 2045. Vibrant Pittsburgh recommends that organizations create pathways into corporate supply chains. And this is for the diversity of entrepreneurs already in our region and also for those we are looking to attract and retain. And this really will impact our continued economic competitiveness. And last, we found that 86% of participant organizations use employee demographic data to guide their decision-making. 54% share this data with their board of directors, but only 12% are making this data available to the public. To move the workforce needle for the region, organizations must do more than just track their employee demographics. To really put this simply, increasing transparency increases accountability. We need to measure what matters to change what matters. We also wanted to highlight again today our Vibrant Index champions, PNC, Reed Smith, and UPMC. These were our top 3 scoring participants in the Vibrant Index. And we are excited to share that they are really working the best practices that we are recommending to the region. And we are excited to see how they participate in our next diagnostic and who else will be joining them as Vibrant champions for Vibrant Index 2.0. And now I'm going to, again, switch back to Alexandria so she can talk to you about some details that we know about Vibrant Index 2.0.
So in our second year of the index, Vibrant Pittsburgh will be evolving its process in the following ways. First, we are opening the process to all organizations in the Pittsburgh region. During the first year, only Vibrant Pittsburgh and Allegheny Conference on Community Development members were invited to participate. And so second, we are expanding the diagnostic assessment. We are more than doubling the amount of questions asked of diagnostic participants. Third, we are introducing a new section to capture information and evaluate organizational responses to the pandemic and socio-political unrest of 2020. And 4, the diagnostic period will be taking place from January 18th, 2021 through March 19th. And any organizations interested in participating in the Vibrant 2.0 can reach out to me, Alexandria Johnson, at vibrantpittsburgh.org. Also, feel free to visit our website to view the summary report and also join our mailing list for any 2020 Vibrant Index.
Thank you, Allie. We hope that you enjoyed and were interested in the data that we shared today. And again, if you have any questions about the diagnostic, about our process, or the Vibrant Index rationale on a whole, please do reach out to us, reach out to Alexandria, and we will get you more information. Thank you.
You know, you would hope after 8 years of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable that there would be results to report. And the good news is there actually have been some results, although we have plenty of work to do as a region to provide and produce a truly welcoming and inclusive place. All the individuals, organizations, and partners who've been digging into this issue in recent years actually have been able to make some progress. And so each day in the roundtable this year, we're going to focus on some of the results, some of the progress that's been made. And we're really pleased to be able to kick things off with Catherine Egan-Kellerman, the CEO of the Port Authority of Allegheny County.
Hi, I'm Catherine Kellerman, the CEO of the Port Authority of Allegheny County. This has been an astounding year that has challenged all of us, both personally and professionally, and certainly promises to change all of our futures. Globally, the COVID-19 pandemic brought death and illness, unemployment, and financial uncertainties. Port Authority did not escape its reach. While some of our colleagues fell ill, thankfully, none succumbed to the virus. Sadly, we did see some of our fellow transit workers in other cities die from COVID. We mourn their loss along with the rest of our industry. Nationally, we've seen the stories of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Malcolm Harsh, Robert Fuller, and Rayshard Brooks. The murder of George Floyd at the hands of police on May 25th in Minneapolis sparked protests and demonstrations worldwide against police abuses and to call for meaningful reforms. Now, Port Authority stands against racism in all forms and stands with those acting to address the systemic problem and removing barriers to public transit, building a more equitable region in Pittsburgh. To stand against racism requires action, and we've made progress in the past few years. Port Authority's diversity hiring rate has improved from 57% in 2018 to 59% in 2019, and we have room to do better. Our diversity promotion rate has improved from 37% in 2018 to 52% in 2019. Progress, we can still do better. Now, all job interview panels include at least one diversity interviewer, and every group of candidates has at least one woman and one person of color. As of January 1st, 2019, Port Authority removed any questions from our employment applications about criminal history. This is also known as ban the box. Qualifications of applicants are considered first without the stigma of a conviction. We've also removed salary histories, so we're paying our applicants based on the work they will do and not what they earned previously. This levels the playing field for all of our candidates. We've also expanded the number of outlets used to advertise our job opportunities to minority audiences. We've historically advertised with the New Pittsburgh Courier for at least 2 decades, and we are looking beyond to widen our reach. Port Authority reestablished the Pittsburgh chapter of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. This is a nationally recognized industry-leading group, and we're proud to participate. We held our first Vendor Day last fall to highlight contracting opportunities and to match vendors with new partners. Roughly 1/3 of the attending companies at our Vendor Day were disadvantaged, meaning that they are owned by minorities, women, or other groups historically disadvantaged in business opportunities here in Pittsburgh, statewide and nationally. Port Authority's Police Department adopted a community-oriented policing philosophy in March 2019 that guides how we interact with riders, employees, and other members of the community each day. The focus is on intervention and prevention through problem solving and building collaborative partnerships with patrons and employees. Our entire police department has received crisis awareness training, which teaches and focuses on de-escalation. About 90% of our police department has received a 40-hour training program for crisis intervention training, and we are working to complete the training for our remaining officers. All officers have received Procedural Justice 1, 2, and 3, which is implicit bias training through the Pittsburgh Police Training Department. All new officers receive this training, which is part of the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice through the Department of Justice. Now, this is a start, but we acknowledge it's not enough. This represents industry best practices and the goals of our senior staff, but it doesn't include the voices and views of our entire agency. It also has focused strongly on what sounded good in February of this year, and now in October we find a very different circumstances, which needs a new, stronger response. To that end, we've decided to pause our strategic plan development, which was originally slated for completion in the summer. Now, together, we can chart how Port Authority becomes the best employer and agency to support and create a more equitable future for our region. We hired an outside consultant, Dr. Marlon Moore, who will work with our senior management team and devise an immediate plan of action to further integrate diversity, inclusion, and equity in all aspects of our organization, including our business policies. And I'm very excited to share that we are actively seeking candidates for the Director of Equity and Inclusion. This is a new role at Port Authority. It's the inaugural position to create an equity-focused team that will develop a program not just for employees aimed at supporting and encouraging equity in the workplace, but of all aspects in Port Authority: finance, technology, planning, and more. While we already have positions within our Human Resources Division working in employee relations and equal opportunity, this new position will help elevate our commitment to this work and add resources to the fine work already being done. This new director will report to the Chief of Human Resources with a dotted line to me and work closely both with my office and the Human Resources Division. The director will be asked to bring external and emerging trends into our cultural environment that promote and encourage equity throughout the agency. Again, the world changed over this summer, and our tools and everything we're focusing on needs to reflect that. This new director will analyze programs and policies so they can present recommendations and improvements and create an action plan for change. Again, not just how we do business with each other, but how we support affordable housing, land use decision, and business development across our region. Additionally, our final approved fiscal 21 budget includes another position to expand our diversity business programs, and I hope to have all these positions filled this fall. Our goal is not just to satisfy legislation and regulations. We have to look beyond these minimum requirements. These efforts alone also won't address every equity matter this organization faces. It's a start, a place from which we can grow and establish over time a work environment and business practice that includes all voices and views. I believe we can get there. It's not just getting a place at the table, it's building a bigger table where we can all participate. We're committed to being collaborative, supportive, and respectful of people of all demographics so we can help create an even better environment and more opportunities for participation and contribution here at Port Authority and in the southwestern Pennsylvania region.
Ms. Kalaman, thank you so very much, and it's great to hear the progress that the Port Authority is making, especially in such challenging times for the transit industry, not just here in our region, but across the country. You know, another area that's been challenging for so many years has been the construction industry, and I've been in Pittsburgh for almost 40 years, and the whole time I've been here, there's been a concern expressed by the African American community about lack of opportunity and access to be able to get jobs in construction. And with all the cranes we saw going up all around us prior to the pandemic, and even during it in many cases, it's become a more important issue than ever before. And what's happened is the construction industry has found they need more people, they need more talent. And there's been a really concerted push in recent years to try to open the doors, reach into the African American community, and find a way to create career paths that really were pretty impossible decades ago. And so for an update on the progress that's being made in opening doors to the construction industry, we're very pleased to have with us today Jeff Nobers, the Executive Director of the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania.
Hello, it's great to be back here at CERI. I'm Jeff Nobers with the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania, and I thank you for the time today. Certainly been a trying year, as we all know, and hopefully things will start to improve, although sometimes it doesn't seem that that's in the near term. Nonetheless, I wanted to give you an update on our Intro to the Trades program. I want to thank Tim Stevens for giving us the opportunity to talk about that with you. And Of course, this year we've had some slowdowns in the program. We were unable to hold classes from March really through the end of June based on various regulations and the COVID outbreak. But we have been able to get another few classes under our belt this year, and certainly looking forward to getting back to a fuller schedule next year. Nonetheless, since we instituted the program back in March of last year, so a little over a year ago, but reality is it's about a year when you take out these months we lost due to the pandemic. We enrolled 121 folks. Of those, 102 were African American and 17 were female. And we graduated 117 of the 121. So the graduation rate is about 97%. And the 4 that did not graduate left by their own choice, just realizing as they went through the pre-apprenticeship, the construction really wasn't what they wanted to be doing. So as a result of that, our placement rate now is right around 65%. That has dropped from where we were operating at well over 80%. And a lot of that has to do with the pandemic. We have probably about 15% unemployment, in some trades higher as a result of the pandemic. So more difficult to get the apprentices placed at this point because a big part of their training is on the job. So without jobs and work to send them to, difficult to place them. However, we're working with our folks and seeking to get them maybe into some different work right now just to earn money, to be able to make a living. And we'll continue to work with them until we can get them into the apprenticeship, hopefully the apprenticeship of their choosing, but definitely into an apprenticeship. So from that standpoint, I think we've had a pretty good year and done a pretty good job with that. A couple of highlights I'd like to give you. We had 6 folks graduate back in March before the pandemic hit. And they actually have worked through the pandemic. Within about 3 weeks, they were all members of the Painters Union, and they were working on projects where they were making $30 an hour plus benefits. So great success story for those 6 folks. Steve Abrams, one of our graduates, he graduated on a Friday, started working as an industrial painter on the 9th Street Bridge the following Tuesday. So a very quick turnaround for Steve to get into that apprenticeship. A lot of our grads go into the laborers, and they go into the laborers because they really don't have any kind of background in construction, and it's a great training for them. They get to understand the industry and see what all the trades do. But by no means do we want them just to be laborers their entire career if they aspire to do other things. So most recently, we have had 2 move from the laborers into the carpenters. We've had 2 move into the operating engineers. We have a 4th-year operating engineer now. Her name is Sherelle Clausel. And Sherelle received the State Apprentice of the Year Award for 2019, which was awarded earlier this year. So when you think of all the apprentices in the state of Pennsylvania, and this cuts across all industries, one of our graduates who is working as an operating engineer, 4th-year operator, received that award. And she's actually been working for Lindy Paving since she graduated. So that's also a testament to Sherelle's, not only her skill, but her dedication to the profession. We also now have folks that have graduated to journey person levels in the masons, the electricians, the carpenters. We're close with a few at the operating engineers. So I think all in all, the program has proven to be successful. We'd always like to be able to do greater numbers, but you run into issues of funding, you run into issues of staffing to have enough people to run these programs. And by no means is this the full solution to diversifying our workforce in the construction industry, but it's certainly a good foundation and a basis that helps us do that. As a result of this, we are in an agreement with the Penguins on the arena site. So we will be working with the 3 contractors there PJ Dick, Macero, and Mascaro in respect to training people, pre-apprentice training people, to take them right into apprenticeships, and they are earmarked to work at that site as part of that community agreement and achieving the minority participation goals that the Penguins agreed to, but more importantly, that we in the industry believe we should hit and actually exceed if we're to continue to do this and grow and diversify our industry. Just a couple of quick things. I want to thank Ron Sapp and Chiquita Barnett. Ron and Chiquita run our program. Ron is the day-to-day administrator. Chiquita handles all the backroom stuff, an amazing amount of paperwork, to get the funding lined up right. She tracks everybody. She, really keeps tabs on folks. So without them, this program would not exist. It would never function the way it does. Also want to thank the Urban League. They've been a great partner over the past year and a half or so since we took over the program at the Builders Guild. And they provide hard hats for our graduates so they don't have to purchase those as they enter the industry. They've provided food to those in our programs that need that kind of assistance. Not everybody does, but many do. They've helped find housing for some of our graduates who were, not living on the street per se, but they were homeless in that they were staying with a relative, staying with a friend, really didn't have their own residence, and they've helped those folks secure that. So it's been, really, I think, a great relationship with the Urban League, and we appreciate all of their help and effort. So with that, I thank you all. Certainly, if anybody has questions or would like to talk about any of the program details or issues that we may be facing, you can reach me at jnobers@buildersguild.org. Tim certainly knows how to get a hold of me, and I'd appreciate speaking with you. So again, thank you for your time. I wish you all the best of luck, and hopefully next year we can do this in person. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you so much. And it's really terrific to be able to see the partnership evolve between the building trades, the building industry, and the African American community to create some really meaningful opportunities that perhaps did not exist in the not too distant past. We've said all along today that leadership is so important to really affect positive change. And one leader in town who's already turned heads, who's relatively new to Pittsburgh, is Steve Malnight, the CEO of Duquesne Light, who has already been recruiting and advancing African Americans into important leadership roles within the utility. And we're so pleased today to have Steve Malnight with us to give us an update. Once again, he's the CEO of Duquesne Light.
Hello, I'm Steve Malnight, President and CEO at Duquesne Light Company. Thank you for joining me at the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable. I appreciate you making the time for this important conversation. I came to this region about a year and a half ago, so I recently had the opportunity to really get to know Pittsburgh and understand the incredible advantages of this community. We are builders, not just builders, but builders of the future. We are innovators, we're future focused, and the quality of life in this region is incredible. But I also saw that much of the country, those opportunities are not equally shared across all citizens in this region. As a nation and as a region, who we are is shaped by centuries of systematic racism and inequity. In our society today, we finally seem to be having a different conversation about those issues, the roots of them, and the effects. And I am very optimistic that those conversations can lead to different results. But the fact is, the words we say aren't going to matter. What will matter is the actions we take. At Duquesne Light Company, we're a 140-year-old company. And the fact is, like much of our society, we have not been the kind of company that we want to be in the future. A place that is fully supportive of all members of our community, that gives opportunities to all, that builds a team of the very best and brightest from across our communities. Our history is not always one that we can be proud of, but our history is what got us here today. And in learning about that, and in confronting it, and learning from it, we can truly do something different. And that's really where our commitment is. We're also a company that is completely dependent on the success of the communities we serve. We serve every member of this community, not just some. Not those who have the most advantages, and not only those who don't. But the fact is, as a company and as a region, every time someone in our community suffers from an inability to get a job that can support their family, or whose children don't have the opportunities to advance and grow, we're all less as a result. Our community is less, my company is less, as we lose out on the incredible potential if all of us have the opportunity to grow and thrive and be our best. For us as a company, we will only be successful when our communities thrive. And we have tremendous opportunity to share and to make sure that all members of our community have an equitable opportunity to continue to grow. And that's our commitment. That is our focus. How are we going to go do that? Well, first, it starts with looking inward at ourselves, at our workforce, and the culture of the company that we have. You know, the marketplace around us is changing every day. New technologies are available for customers that are changing the way they use energy and are going to have a disruptive effect on our entire business. For us to succeed in an environment where the future is uncertain, we need a diverse set of perspectives around the table to identify the best solutions going forward. That diversity is our strength, and it is critically important to getting to the best answers. But it's not enough. Every voice around that table needs to be heard and respected. We don't yet have a culture that is fully achieving that goal. We have work to do on both our diversity of our workforce and ensuring that our workforce at all levels represents the communities we serve, and on our inclusive culture in ensuring that once those voices are here, that we hear them, that we understand them, that we can challenge each other and get better as a result as a team. You know, we're starting to have conversations here, and over the last several weeks and months, we've had conversations that have been unlike any that I've been a part of throughout my career. Times for us to confront difficult subjects of race and business and how we work together, to listen to each other, to share hard truths and challenging conversations, not from the perspective of having all the answers, but from the perspective of understanding each other better. Those conversations have been enlightening, they've been educating, but most importantly, they've helped bring us together as a team to understand the gaps and start to work together on how to get better. We've launched our first business employee resource groups, starting with a women's organization and now with a Black employee resource group and soon a veterans employee resource group. Those kinds of conversations and communities within our company are vitally important to ensure we can achieve our diversity and inclusion goals. We've also been very focused on our hiring to make sure that as we go out and look for opportunities for people to join our team, that we truly find the very best talent. And that happens when we look and ensure that we have a very diverse slate of candidates, that we make sure we look far and wide to look for all of the benefits and opportunities that people can bring to Duquesne Light. We've seen the advantages of that. Our team continues to get stronger and stronger as we bring in new talent and we recognize the benefits of a diverse and inclusive workforce. We're also looking at how we can support our customers. You know, in August, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York issued a report stating that 41% of Black-owned businesses closed during the period of February to April. That's in comparison to 32% of Latino businesses and 26% of Asian businesses. And by comparison, only 17% of white-owned businesses closed during the same period. It's clear that this pandemic and the economic challenges that are surrounding it are falling disproportionately on those who can least tolerate it. Our minority communities, and particularly our Black community, is struggling now more than ever. And now is the time that we all have to step up and support them. You know, here at Duquesne Light, we're making a long-term commitment to Black-owned businesses in our community because they are critical to power our region. These businesses are the lifeblood of our neighborhoods. They provide jobs, they provide opportunity, and they help secure the culture of our local communities and neighborhoods that are so vital to making this a great place to live. It's time for us all to confront the barriers and the challenges that have prevented Black-owned businesses from thriving. In doing that, we will help our communities grow and help support our customers. At the same time, we're looking at how we can continue to support our communities more broadly. Sometimes it's through things like this, where we just stand up and acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, but we have a strong commitment and we want to work together on addressing the inequalities that have plagued our community for far too long. We're also looking at how we support our communities through our supplier diversity programs. You know, last year alone, we spent $117 million in our local communities. We have tremendous opportunity to ensure that through our economic power of sourcing, that we support businesses that share our goal of helping all communities in our region thrive. You know, at DLC, we don't have all the answers. We certainly aren't perfect. We have lots of opportunity to continue to get better. But we do know that for us to be successful, we need everyone to have a seat at the table. And more than just a seat at the table, we need to make sure that every voice at that table is heard and respected and is able to achieve their full potential. We're confronting the effects of centuries of history, and the solutions to that are clearly not going to happen overnight. But we do know that if we join together, sharing our common commitment, sharing best practices, sharing our successes and failures, we can build that table together. And when we do that, this region is going to continue to get stronger for all of us. Our companies will get better. Our companies will have new opportunities. And this place will continue to be a great place to live for all of us. I'd ask you to join us in that. Join us in helping to build that table together. Thank you.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. As we've talked about talent attraction and retention and advancement today, we've put a lot of issues on the table. We've talked about some of the progress we've made as a community, and we've also talked about many of the challenges that still remain and the work that needs to be done. So we're going to wrap up today's episode of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable with a panel discussion about just those topics, how far we've come, the work we still need to do. And we have a terrific panel joining us today to be able to dig into these issues and discuss it. Esther Bush, the president and CEO of the Urban League of Pittsburgh, Janine Jelks-Seale, my co-host who you've met earlier today, who's the senior advisor of the Office of Administration at the Allegheny County Department of Human Services. And we have Selena Schmidt, the president and CEO of Coro here in Pittsburgh. And to lead the discussion, an old friend and an impressive and important leader in our community for so many years, Greg Spencer, the CEO of Randall Industries. Greg?
Good morning. Thank you for joining this panel. I'm looking forward to having a good, healthy discussion. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Greg Spencer. I am the president of Randall Industries, LLC. I am a Pittsburgher. Actually, I'm from Little Washington, Pennsylvania, which is really my home. And so I've spent most of my time here in this city. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion today. So maybe each one of us tell a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get to work.
Esther Bush. I'm president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. Born and raised in Pittsburgh, a graduate of Westinghouse High School, and I have been back home for 25 years. It's a pleasure to be back in Pittsburgh and to try to help it move from where it is to where it needs to be.
Great. My name is Selena Schmidt. I'm the executive director of the Coro Center for Civic Leadership. Born and raised in Pittsburgh, but had the opportunity to live and work in New York, Boston, D.C., up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and happy to be back. Folks call us sometimes boomerangers, but I like to use the lexicon and say I'm a gumbander, and I've snapped back.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Glad to bring the ideas that I've been able to see in other places that have had different and sometimes similar struggles, but have overcome them in a variety of ways back home here to Pittsburgh.
I have to use that. Gumbander. Hello, my name is Janine Jelks-Seale. I am a senior advisor with our Allegheny County's Department of Human Service. I am also a Pittsburgher, and I'm a boomerang, or a gumbander, as you say. I've had the opportunity to work and live in the Midwest and just see how things are done differently and come back to Pittsburgh with the pride that I have for the city and helping the region move forward in a very Pittsburgh way, but also in a way that appreciates outside perspective.
That's great. So I'm the only person that didn't grow up in Pittsburgh.
That's right. We're very accepting.
They accept me, okay, after all these years. So I'd like to make a few comments, and then we'll get started in a couple questions as we move forward. Among the region's residents, Pittsburgh's African-American men have historically and disproportionately faced unprecedented barriers to economic opportunities. Studies supported by the foundation community and others have focused on structural barriers that contribute to the persistent racial disparities in the Pittsburgh region. Structural barriers are obstacles that are collectively affect one group disproportionately than other groups, and therefore disparities in outcome. One of the things that I thought we would have an opportunity to talk about, particularly after looking at those tapes from that were recorded earlier, is how the discussions are taking place and the interest in people are taking place to address that. I actually really enjoyed the discussion that Steve Melnick presented. He had a vision, spoke of a vision, spoke of opportunities, stressed how opportunities for everyone affects his business. So he gave a business case argument for diversity, and I was really impressed by that. So what we can do is, if anyone else had similar reactions or any reaction to that, but the question I have is, what do we need to do to get other CEOs to do what Steve has done, or at least trying to do? Everybody has a lot of work to do. I mean, there's a lot to be done. And I think progress has been made, but I just don't think it's been enough. So I'll go to Esther first.
Okay, what else can be done here in Pittsburgh? I am exceptionally proud I won't name them, but I have been on a list of many boards and continue to serve on boards. And all of these boards, of course, employ individuals, thousands of individuals for most of them. I have typically found myself really disappointed in the fact that there is a lack of diversity at the higher levels of corporate management, that there is a lack of effort, even though there's a lot of vocabulary around bringing in African Americans, Hispanic women, etc. I was privileged and honored to work for an extremely large, when I say work for, served on a board, helped develop their diversity committee, etc. And it was amazing to me how the thinking of that major corporation really was so reflective of the rest of the community. The Allegheny Conference absolutely has program after program, plan after plan, but in terms of measuring the difference, it's not happening. And so I will say to corporate America, we are not going to make it without pulling together all of the resources from the human potential that exists in Pittsburgh. That means purposefully, unashamedly hiring African Americans to be in the positions from service straight up through the boardroom. And we have to do it, not just say it, we have to do it and support it. And I would just ask corporate America to be bold enough to do what is appropriate for the city of Pittsburgh as well as for their profits.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Last comments?
I can't echo that enough. And I think a piece of that, and you being in those rooms, is also being able to speak the language. One of the things I loved about the video was the very specific business case. Having had the opportunity to work in large corporate, small business, nonprofit, academia, and in the public sector, there's definitely a different language as you go across the different arenas. And so being able to be in those translator spaces to say, I know that this is what this sounds like in the nonprofit world or in the public sector world, but I can give you that ROI. I can show you very specifically how this wide array of skill sets is going to make you competitive. And there is no better time to be talking to CEOs about what they need to be agile and competitive. And that means they can't do the things that they've been doing because 2019 isn't coming back. If you're not ready and you're not looking at different talent with different skill sets than you've always selected, and you're not actively working to go out of your comfort zone to find them,
please,
you're not going to be there. But folks that can speak the language and can help translate and break those barriers, I think that's a piece of the equation.
And I think what I would add to build on your comments, Lena, and what's been said thus far about speaking the language is the peer-to-peer conversation that individuals such as Steve have with his peers about what he's doing for his organization, having really inquiring what others are doing for their organization, having that talk that only CEO to CEO, I think, can have. I think in addition to that, there's a conversation in a meeting that talent is hidden in plain sight. And I think if you're in the pool, if you're part of a community who's saying, hey, what about me? I have the talent, the skill, the experiences. I'm just looking for that opportunity that you talk about. It's clear to us that talent is abundant. It's not always as clear to those who may be removed from the community, might be focused on other goals within business. And so any opportunity that our leaders have to talk directly with the talent, not only hear what skills and abilities they have to offer, but hear about their experiences as human beings. I think that personal connection, the opportunity to share and engage in one story, and organizations such as TALI and the Leadership Initiative and connecting talent and being able to have those direct conversations about one's personal experience as a human being is really additive to this language that might be held between CEO and what they're doing for their organizations.
Absolutely. So over 20 years ago, a few of us who were African American executives started a little organization. We decided that we needed to try to do something. At that time, there were 22 people who were corporate officers, right? And we weren't trying to be leaders. We just wanted to be in a position that we had our resources and we had things we wanted to do, and we didn't have to go back and say, may I? And so we had a symposium here, and we invited 8, I think, CEOs, and we would always look within our organization. Symposium had 2,000 African American professionals from the companies that actually we worked with. And I remember after the one session, the CEO came over to me and said, Greg, where did you find these people? I said, they work for you.
Right, exactly. Could you go down one flight?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I really echo that kind of situation. And there's nothing, having served through that corporate arena, it's always good to have someone sit and say, is it me? I mean, You know, I can tell what's going on, and it's different. And so so help me think through that a little bit. And so that's why it's so important. One can't do it by themselves, right? They need to have support within the organization and with people like them who understand, so you don't have to go through too much language issues to try to get through.
But they have to ask the why, Greg. They have to ask why if they are sincere. And what gets me is we all have read enough stuff that say that the return on investment is there in any company that has a mixture of thinking, male, female, black, white, young, old, south, north, whatever the diversity is. All of the research says it pays off. Right. I want people to know that I am here today. I only brought 4 books, okay, that the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh published. One is called The Bridge, an African American Guide to Pittsburgh, and it gives you the history of black folks in Pittsburgh, the successes, and in the back there is a book on black businesses. Then we have the state of black youth in Pittsburgh, and it's because all of these black children are looking for an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Would you reach out to me? Would you train me? Then we have Allegheny County Health in black and white. Jesus, can we talk about health today in the pandemic? Right. And why are black folks catching the disease 3 or 4 times higher than our white brothers and sisters, and why are we dying at a much faster rate? And it's because of where our health was before the pandemic started. And the last one is the African American Leadership Directory, because to your point, Greg, which is the point that I said, okay, let me share my book. People say I can't find one. Okay, and so I put together several hundred. And I'm very serious about this. Several hundred African American leaders with their educational qualifications, with their skill levels, etc. They were put together so that people could select black folks to serve on their boards, but many of them got jobs as a result of this. Judge Cynthia Baldwin, who is in the book, got a phone call from out of town with a job offer as a result of her seeing this. I'm going to stop and let my other panelists get in. But the point I'm trying to make, Greg, is just what you said. They, meaning anybody that can hire, anybody that can influence. It is about broadening your base of experience, trusting other individuals, and not thinking it's the one person that you hired in HR and call them the diversity officer and they're responsible for all blacks in the corporation. It is, and Candy Castleberry Singleton, bless her heart, right, that was at UPMC for years, Candy used to say, it is everybody's job. Don't look at me to hire all the black people. It is all of our jobs to make this institution work better.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Thank you. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I yes. Yes. And I think one of the things that we do at Coro is we try to provide some low stakes opportunities, right? So by having fellows come from all over and you know, on our fellows program alone, 59% self-identify as BIPOC, right? So, and then if we look at just how we go across all of our programs, not just under 40% of, if you collect all of our programs, identify specifically as Black or African American. And so when we have these little immersion opportunities through a 6-week intensive with a fellows program, or with Public Allies, where it's a 10-month apprenticeship program. So you can try out these folks and see, like, look, we can find them for you and give them an opportunity to work within your organization, see what they bring to the table. It's impressive to see the percentage of people that end up getting hired within those organizations, or certainly make the connections along the way to be able to make that next step. But I mean, in some cases, it's like, make it easy for me. Okay, great. I'm gonna source this person. I'm gonna vet this person. I'm gonna train this person, and let you get a chance to work with them to see what is possible.
Right.
I think what I would add is, in addition to the talent being right there, hidden in plain sight, is that the strategies are right there. Not so much hidden, but necessarily they're not known. And so there really is a need for not only there to be a commitment at the top, for there to be representation, kind of all the things that we need to see. There's a call for those who are in the muck of it, going through the process. What is the screening process? What are our recruitment strategies? Who are really working on the nuts and bolts of talent acquisition and retention, to think about, how might I work differently to achieve the goal of having diverser pools of talent? And that does require some difference. It requires utilizing different networks, creating different relationships and partnerships. And so we need both. We need that commitment. We need there to be a recognition that talent is there. You don't necessarily have to do anything special. It's right there in front of you. And there are strategies that need to do specific outreach and engagement and relationship building, so that we can meet the talent that is, that doesn't have a connection with the organization that's doing the recruiting.
That's right. We have several organizations, you mentioned TALI and others, that are doing some good work. You think about the board efforts. David Motley is doing a nice job trying to diversify the boards. Interesting tape from Bob in Pittsburgh on the analytics. I found it very interesting. I also found it interesting that the CEOs aren't comfortable sharing their numbers. And probably because they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
Right?
They're embarrassed. Their numbers are small. Let's say it out loud.
That's right. But that's what it takes. I mean, it really takes, and the EARN group, that's a relatively new group, trying to hold them accountable to live up to what they say. It's difficult to do that from where you are. It takes every level, to your point earlier, every level to make a difference, to have a commitment and really measure it. That's another business issue, right? Got to measure everything you do, and you have to hold people accountable because those numbers.
Measure it and share it, like was stated. Share it. And if you are such an outstanding corporation, and I used to say this to a particular CEO, I used to say, you want to be number one in everything that happens in Pittsburgh. And you can be.
Right.
Doesn't anybody want to be number one in diversity, recruitment, retention, promotion, sending people back to school, doing whatever? It makes my skin crawl when people say, I can't find, I don't know, I don't understand. And I can't participate here today without sharing my very high level of concern, I will say, for Pittsburgh public school students, but for African American students throughout this country, and poor people across the board, the statistics are killing me. And so if we have folks that are educated and can't get a job, what are we going to do with those folks who I didn't have access to a hotspot, I didn't have a computer, I didn't have a this. I live with my grandmother. She's 73. What does she know about a computer? I mean, let us understand and meet people where they are. I really, really, really want to thank Comcast for giving McKeesport They gave McKeesport, every junior high, every senior high, and every teacher a computer and 1 year's Wi-Fi service. Come on. Can we reach out? Use some of that profit to help us. You don't have to have $100 million every day, all day.
Right.
I'm being very serious because it hurts my heart. And I will be honest with you. With the environment we're living in this second, I am very concerned. As somebody that's been working in the civil rights movement for literally 40 years, I thought it was bad yesterday. Do you know how afraid I am about tomorrow? And so I will wind down with this comment, and that is, we have to meet our children where we are, where they are, because we're all going to be in trouble.
Right.
And I do not get in front of a microphone these days without promoting two things: vote and participate in the census. You have to do those two things for yourself, if not for anybody else.
Great point. Thank you.
You're doing so much with learning pods also to help, right? For your groups too.
Yes, establishing places where parents can bring their children, even if your school district is in a hybrid model or virtual model, that there could be a place to work with other students and have that time facilitated for learning that's in or near your community. It's so important. And I think to the point about just the needs that exist, both of the children within the families, of the talented individuals who are seeking opportunity, or the needs that exist within the individuals themselves. I mean, Jeff mentioned recognizing that some of the men who are entering into the training program need assistance with transportation, they're looking for housing. And unfortunately, there's this trade-off that has to be made. It's, do I enter into training today with the prospect of having a career that's higher paying wage in the future, knowing that I have to provide for myself and for my family? Or do I immediately seek out what probably is not a career, it's more of a job, and meet that financial need? That shouldn't be the choice. We all know what that's there. So of course I'm biased with working for the Department of Human Services, but really when you're seeking talent, knowing that the talent are human beings and are in lives and in communities, and to recognize there's so many great contributions that an individual can make to our organization, to the work that we do, and to experience them as a whole person and think, what are the other aspects to life to support your success within this role? And sometimes that's going that extra mile and connecting someone to services or programs and being concerned for the well-being of that person. And if you, going back to the measures, if you are concerned about meeting your goal, about achieving representation, about hiring and promoting more individuals into your apprenticeship programs, into your entry-level roles, you're going to see what else you need to do to recruit that talent.
Right.
And you're going to think about, maybe it's not what you do as a business entity, but what partnerships might you form with the nonprofit sector, with the public sector, to support your current workforce and your future workforce.
I'm very proud that the Urban League is a partner with the Builders Guild, and he did mention it at the end of his presentation. But to see somebody go all the way through a training program, then they cannot get placed because they cannot afford to buy a pair of steel-toed boots. Or they cannot get placed because they do not have the tool kits that are needed. And so the Urban League has come in and provided those things through a grant from the Department of Labor. And the other thing I'll mention very quickly on that is the Urban League has one of the largest housing programs in the city. Do you know how many of those participants need housing? I mean, support for rent or mortgage or utilities. And not just for that, but across the board. We are in trouble from a housing perspective.
You know, I just want to piggyback for a second on your comment with respect to Neighbors tape. I thought that was really very interesting, and they've done a lot. And to your point about the need for support, I think Ron Sapp and Chiquita Barnett do such an outstanding job.
Yes, they do.
They really fundamentally care about those folks going through the program, and to team them up with someone like the Urban League or other social service organizations supporting their more physical needs, I think that is great. We'll see the change.
And can I add, there's a slightly different spin, but community is a basic need.
Yes.
And so when we're thinking about other roles within this town, particularly those we're recruiting to Pittsburgh, that you can't just recruit this awesome Black talent to Pittsburgh and not support them in connecting to community, connecting to meaningful work, your extracurricular activities. Esther's holding a book up there.
Well, that's why this was created.
Exactly.
This was created for the new folks moving
as
here.
we're having that conversation about talent attraction, the job does not end there. And as we talk about retention, it's not only the opportunities professionally that you're offering within your organization, it's also the ecosystem of community that exists that's part of the retention strategy. And senior leaders really need to own that.
Would you just comment? I know you have brought people in to the programs from outside the region.
Well, and I think that one of the luxuries that Coro has is we work across all the different sectors, and so we can see things that people do well and things that are like, wow, you could really talk to these folks about that thing. But I think, reflecting back just on going back to that business case in the business sector, I think that you've got to bring it all in house, or you get that consultant in house. Maybe if we spend a little more of that community, corporate social responsibility and the talent attraction, your HR dollars, in connecting with your organization and this organization, so you don't have to. I mean, you bring great talent and you drop them off in Moon Township all alone, which is everyone that I know.
Is there another Black person in Pittsburgh?
And they don't think so.
You're right.
I've got folks like, you live in Oakdale? Really? Okay. Let me show you. Let me give you a list. And so I think that you don't have to do it in-house, but you do have to be connected in some way.
Right.
And so maybe one of the other things we need to figure out is how do we actually get the C-suites and those executive level to say, oh, it's not all about us. We can actually utilize all these other organizations that are waiting to connect. I said, we're lucky that we get a chance to bridge all those in all the programs that we do.
Right.
So we're already creating that intersection. And then we hope, and so far, in 21 years, we've got a lot of evidence that people then leave the organization and go do things like that. Like Derek Tillman, an alum of ours, who in the world of development is also bridging all of those pieces with his bridge development.
But people have to not be skeptical about it. They have to do it, and organizations like yours can do it so masterfully and so innocently. So I do applaud what you have done and what you are doing to make it better.
Thanks.
I would be remiss if I didn't make the comment that some people who come here say that the Black Pittsburgh is not very inviting. That we don't invite people over for dinner or come over and cook out back and watch the game.
If you can go to school with them.
So what can we do about that? We've lost, to your point about the census, the last census for a 5-year period, we lost 7,000 African Americans here in Pittsburgh. We don't want to see that happen again. What do you think we can do to convince people to stay?
This is a little thing, but I would argue that you told the story about your mentor. So I know what makes me feel good about a place, besides restaurants and fabulousness and good people that I meet, is feeling like I have a stake. So if part of what we're doing when we're attracting people is also giving them a stake in the future, connecting them with Be a Mentor for 4th graders, taking them to the food bank, even getting them just picking up groceries for 412 Food Rescue, right? Some way that they have to have a stake in here. Because if we really talk about why are we all here, it's because we committed. And we have a relationship with this place. So what if we did a little bit of that? I mean, that's an outside community, but one little thing that when we meet someone, we say like, oh, I volunteer with this. You might like that. and make that connection. Especially since it's hard to have people over for dinner right this minute.
Good, thank you. I think we have to begin to wrap up, which I hate to do. I think there's so many more things we would like to discuss.
Yes.
But I want to give everybody an opportunity, if they have a minute, they just want to make a few seconds to make a comment that you want to make sure that you really want to get it off.
This conversation is so critical and so important for the future of the Urban League. Listen to me, Urban League, for the future of Pittsburgh, for our community.
Right.
And the point you were making just previous is we have to make this community.
Right.
Each and every one of us have to own the space we're in and how we can bring others in. And that's honestly what I try to do with this book. And for new Black folks coming in town, but Pittsburghers do have a reputation of, if I didn't go to grade school with you, you're not my friend. I invite you over one time and then I don't invite you over again. So I am not saying that it's everybody else's fault. I'm saying all of us need to take ownership in making Pittsburgh a better place for all of us to live.
We'll end on that note. That was outstanding. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get to work. Thank you.
All right, Greg, thank you so much, and thanks to the panel for such an important discussion about an issue that's really critical to the future of our region. How are we going to retain, attract, and advance everybody who lives here and give everybody an equal shot at a bright opportunity in the Pittsburgh region of the future? Well, speaking about the future, we have day 2 of the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to shift our focus just a little bit. We're going to talk about gender equity and human rights, issues that have been front and center since the spring following the killing of George Floyd and the waves of protests for racial justice across the United States. And we're going to dig into it with a discussion and a presentation by an African American who's literally the first African American to lead a billion-dollar organization in Pittsburgh, Kane Hayes, the CEO of Gateway Health. We're also going to talk about measurement, and in particular, the really groundbreaking milestone report of the Gender Commission, the Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission, that came out last year that really turned heads, especially with its spotlight on women and African American women and minorities and the disparity that exists in our region. And we're going to wrap it up with a discussion that'll involve what the University of Pittsburgh and the City of Pittsburgh are doing to really make a difference when it comes to gender equity and human rights here in southwestern Pennsylvania. So we've got another jam-packed day coming up tomorrow. We hope you'll all be back to join us for that discussion. In the meantime, my name is Bill Flanagan, and on behalf of everybody involved with the Corporate Equity and Inclusion Roundtable, thanks for taking the time to be with us today, and we hope to see you tomorrow.